most recent news, you might have heard that 8 new class race combos will be coming in Dragonflight, including the Tauren and the Draenei Rogues. But did you know that in an interview, Blizzard confirmed that they plan to eventually make all the classes available to all the races, and to do this, they intend to start setting the ground for the artwork and the lore. While this is cool from the gameplay side, let us examine some of the most ridiculous combos and how can they actually be explained, because we will be getting Orc Paladins, Night Elven Paladins, Undead Druids and Shamans. So how is Blizzard going to make sense of this, and what are some of the most bizarre upcoming race class combinations? Are you looking for cheap software like Windows 11 for the best price on the market? Well, Royal City Keys is your best option. You can also find a bunch of games at amazing prices such as Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and best of all, if you use my code DORON, you will get an additional 10% off. So if you want to support the channel and get something for yourself, check out my link in the description below or the QR code on the screen. Over the years, it is quite evident that World of Warcraft has really evolved as a game. Originally, the race and class combinations were really sparse, and there were some classes that weren't even available to the entire faction, not just certain races. So the Alliance had no shamans, while the Horde had no paladins until the Burning Crusade. Personally, I'm not sure how I feel about it. On one hand, it is cool that they're adding more combinations. On the other, I kinda like this uniqueness aspect, as it enticed people to play other factions, and there were more reasons to pick certain races. Well, over the years, Blizzard started making more and more classes available to more races, and it started getting a tad bit ridiculous and kinda controversial. For example, about a decade ago, we got the Tauren Paladins, which was really weird at the time. However, it was explained as them being more akin to Sun Druids, but as the years have passed, this controversial aspect really seems funny from this perspective, as we got even more race class combos that make even less sense from a lore perspective. Most recently, in an interview, Blizzard confirmed that 8 new combos will become available in Dragonflight. Among them, the Tauren and Draenei Rogues, which for the longest time was like one of the biggest memes in the Warcraft community. You know, the Tauren weigh like a ton and are as big as a house, so it would be really weird for them to be stealthy in any way possible, especially as they have hooves and are not exactly the most graceful of the playable races. As you might remember, in Warcraft 3, they literally wielded an entire tree as a weapon, so yeah, they definitely were not sneaky in any way. Other than this, of these new combinations, some of the more weirder ones were Tauren Mages, which isn't really akin to them, as the Taurens have always been about nature, druidism, shamanism, and also Orcish Priests. Now, I gotta say, Orcish Priests were already kinda introduced earlier with the Megar, so it is no longer as big of a shock. Overall, this change seems to have been accepted quite well by the community, and personally, I gotta say, if they already went this far, might as well just take it all the way. Blizzard officially confirmed that they plan to, over the years, make all the races have all the classes as a choice, and that they will be setting up the ground for that to happen with the artwork and the lore that is to come. They kinda wanna do it gradually, they don't wanna introduce them in a single patch. Personally, I'm kinda split on this. Now, I really don't think it is a bad thing. It will give more choice to the people that play the game. Although, as I'm always scared about the lore more than the gameplay itself, I feel like some of these explanations are really going to be reaching as hard as possible. For example, I can see Orcish Paladins making sense even in Night Elven Paladins, but I'm really curious how they're going to explain Blood Elven and Undead Druids and Shamans. That is going to require like some serious mental gymnastics, and I gotta say, I feel like the devs are not really respecting the lore all that much. But hey, let us examine some of the most weirdest combinations and see how they can make sense from a constructive perspective. So keep in mind, races and classes have never been the same in game as they have been in the lore. For most of the game ones, it is based on just balance and cool effects. In WoW lore, you know, warriors don't really jump off a mountain and heroic leap like 50 meters. Additionally, lore races always had their own flavors as opposed to the spells that are available in the game that are kind of more generic. So for example, troll priests wouldn't really be the same as the human ones. They would be more akin to witch doctors. Same goes for Night Elven priests as well. We have always had priestesses of Elune, but they have never been the same in any way to the Draenei or the human ones. Furthermore, tauren paladins are sunwalkers, something akin to sun druids. They aren't really the silver hand paladins. And most recently, the tauren rogues that will be added quite soon could be explained as something akin to maybe criminals, pirates, and not just assassins as you would imagine a rogue to be, as would be the case with some of the more slender races. Over the years, Blizzard has really bridged the gap with the lore for a lot of these combos, but still, some combinations are quite weird. Let us start off with the new paladins. Technically, from this lore perspective, paladins have really been a thing for thousands of years with the Draenei, but from our little kind of limited Azeroth perspective, they have actually been a quite recent phenomenon. Humans, during the war against the orcs, realized that the priests are too weak in melee combat, so they decided to combine warriors and priests, and they created the Order of the Silver Hand, and we got some really notable paladins such as Uther and Tyrion. However, now they are just a completely different thing. It has nothing to do with the original ones. One of the weirder ones would be the Orcish paladins. Now, I don't know about you, but to me there's just something so unholy and unsettling about an Orcish paladin. I know we already have the Megar priests, and quick lore lesson, there is that entire storyline where alternate Endor was converted into a light fanatic world, so that is where they come from. However, now we will be getting regular Orcish priests in Dragonflight, so I guess Blizzard could figure out why not just add paladins as well if you already have the priests. From a lore perspective, they could be connected to the Argent Crusade, and also those that were under the influence of the Army of the Light during the recent Legion invasion. Realistically, this could 100% be explained in the lore quite easily. However, the unsettling part to me is that paladins were like the original orc counters, and now we are getting orcish paladins. While a bit strange, this is one of the classes on this list that can really be justified quite easily, despite just seeming super weird on first glance. Now, another weird paladin would be troll paladins. Well, before I'd say this would just be impossible, we literally already have this on the Lari paladins, and they're explained as something akin to Loa worshippers, so just think of paladins as like an umbrella word. Trolls are really religious, so I can see this making sense. However, Night Elven Paladins would be kinda weird. For thousands of years we had priests of Elune, and they had nothing to do with the light. They worshipped the moon, they worshipped obviously Elune. I guess with this logic we could just extend this to a more martial versed order of Night Elven priests, so we get these paladins. Maybe these could be night warriors. Who really knows what they could come up with. Now, we have two even weirder ones. The most unholy one would be Undead Paladins, but I can see how this can be explained very easily if we get the Lightbound Undead, but also if these undead were just paladins and they were alive. While most Forsaken priests are Shadow Ones, for the longest time in the lore we had light priests where they can actually cast light spells, it just hurts them when they do it. So even though it is weird, I can definitely see it happening. However, one combo I just can't take seriously would be Goblin Paladins, and this combination isn't really unholy, but to me it just seems kinda ridiculous. It is just so uncharacteristic of the goblins to, you know, dedicate their life to serving the light. But hey, I don't know, maybe they just saw that there is more to life than just earning a profit. Overall though, technically, as we follow the Naru in the Army of the Light quite recently, all races could really become priests and paladins because they were maybe attracted to their purpose. They were definitely exposed to the light, so I can see this making sense in the recent time. Now, let us turn to the other two classes that have always been culture specific and see how some of these combos are going to make sense in the future. The shamans and the druids. Let's start from the ones that could be most easily explained to the most ridiculous ones. So, human, druids, and shamans. Now, this is a bit weird, but I can totally see this explained quite easily. Humans have never really been the nature or the element loving types, but they are fast learners. They literally learned magic faster than anyone else. They became literally better than the elves that taught them. Additionally, they also have kind of a forgotten heritage in regards to these two classes, as long ago humans were actually in tribes, so it is totally realistic that they could have dabbled in some basic shamanism or druidism. Lore-wise, they could reconnect with this lost heritage, or maybe they could discover some type of an old human group that was lost and that are practicing druidism or shamanism. Now, the second combo would be Blood Elven Shamans and Druids. To me, this is a bit more ridiculous, however, it shouldn't really be. I don't know about you, but my first thought when I think of Blood Elves would be mages, warlocks, rangers. However, When you think about it, the Blood Elves are literally just night elves that went to a different continent, and night elves were connected to nature, so maybe they rediscovered these old ways, or they may need to embrace druidism and shamanism in order to recover the nature of Quota Lost. While this is definitely uncharacteristic of the race itself, I can see it making sense. However, let's get to the last one, and the one I just can't get my head around, and those are Undead Druids and Shamans. Now, I just don't really see how this can be explained in any way. Being undead is technically the opposite of life and nature itself, so it would really be weird to have undead druids. Just imagine the actual animal forms. With shamanism, hey, maybe it is possible with the elements and all, but undead druidism is just, I don't know, just super weird. Being a druid is like the life class renewal and all this stuff. The only way I could see this explained is maybe somehow through the Shadowlands Arden build or something of the sort, but overall, it would require some serious mental gymnastics. Ultimately though, it will be interesting to see how Blizzard actually plans this out and how they actually make this new lore. Personally, even though I don't think this will happen in a long time, I would really love to see race-specific class effects. So, while gameplay-wise, they would be the same spells, the effects would reflect the races more and they wouldn't just be generic. So, for example, Orc Paladins would be using sun effects instead of the actual light. However, as this would be a lot of work, I don't see it happening anytime soon. Thank you for watching. Check out the Lightbound Undead become the next allied race by clicking on the screen, and check out Doronsmovies Academy for real world history. See you next time.